Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show today. I'm really excited everybody could join us. So today we are talking about disruptive advertising. We're talking about some of the most effective ways you can actually market, grow your business, even if you don't have a huge budget. We're talking about the analytics you need to track, the split testing you need to be doing, everything you need to do to successfully market your business. And to talk about this, I brought one of the foremost experts when it comes to disruptive advertising, Dayley. Now, Chris is a digital marketing entrepreneur with a passion for helping businesses succeed online. After spending years driving traffic through SEO and digital marketing efforts, Chris turned his attention to the user experience of websites to see if he could influence traffic to convert even better. After running his first successful test, he fell in love and began focusing on helping businesses test their website experience. And in 2014, he started his conversion optimization agency, Dayley Conversion, which is a full-service agency helping businesses discover what converts best on their sites through testing. In 2016, he merged his company with Disruptive Advertising, where he currently works as VP of Site Testing and Optimization. They offer full-service A/B testing solutions to clients, including strategy, design, development, and analytics. Chris, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me on, and thanks for reading through the mouthful of my intro.
You've done a lot of stuff, man, so there's a lot to read through. Well, I'm excited you can be here. I'm really big on advertising. I love that you're doing with AdWords. I love what you're doing with Facebook, but nobody talks about the real important stuff of split testing, of analytics. And so I'm really excited to get to jump into all this stuff today.
Yeah, likewise.
So you joined up. Now, what do you guys what do you consider to be disruptive advertising?
Well, so something that I discovered a few years ago that has been I've just really fell in love with, and I've become very passionate about, is the pairing of psychology and marketing. So, historically, marketing, when you think about traditional marketing, you think about things like billboards and TV commercials and that kind of stuff. And I consider that kind of advertising, that's like push advertising, like pushing it in people's faces and trying to get your business in front of as many eyeballs as you possibly can. But when you start doing what we call like pull marketing, where you're trying to find the right people that are in the right mindset, and you're trying to pull them towards something that they already want, you need to understand how people think, what they want, and what's going to influence their decisions. And so that's where my current area of focus and passion is website testing and optimization. And a lot of what we do and a lot of what we focus on when it comes to the website is, what exactly do people want when they come to my site? Traditionally, when a business will build a new website, they'll do one of two things. They'll either go to a design agency and say, design me something that looks awesome, or that looks pretty, or modern, or fresh, or whatever. And the design agency will say, okay, great, here's something that looks pretty. Or they may even say, well, we're UX experts. We understand user experience. And so here's something that is designed for the best user experience. Or the other thing that businesses will do when they're designing a website is they'll find their biggest competitor and say, whatever they're doing must be working, so let's just copy them. The challenge and the problem with both of these approaches is that neither of them take into consideration what your users actually want. Now, I've seen companies try an approach that is recommended by a UX expert and have it fail miserably. I've seen companies copy their competitors' websites and it fails miserably. I've also seen people do that and it works, but a lot of times they don't know why it works. And so when I talk about disruptive approaches to marketing, what I'm usually talking about is thinking about things in a different way than people traditionally do. Taking a different approach and a different mindset, and instead of saying, I know what's best, saying, let's try a bunch of things out and see what ultimately resonates best with our audience.
So a lot of it has to do with trying concepts, testing, figuring out what works best, versus going all in on something you really don't have any idea if it could work or be exactly what the business needs.
Absolutely, and that applies from Facebook and Google advertising perspective as much as it applies to your website or email funnels or whatever you have set up. that type of approach is equally applicable.
So have you seen this in your world help business owners where they come in and they do this traditional marketing approach, then they come in and do this pull marketing that you guys are doing that's completely disruptive to what they usually were doing before? Like what kind of changes have you seen firsthand this make in an actual business that's doing typical marketing?
Well, there's a lot of different types of impacts here. So I'll talk about first. There's an attitude adjustment that happens. So, when I go in and talk to a lot of business owners, one of the first things I'll usually ask is, "Tell me what you're doing and why you're doing it." And so, from a Facebook perspective, from a website perspective, I'll give you an example. We had a client that came to us that had spent several $100,000 designing a new website. And I said, "Tell me what you did. What did you do? Why did you do it?" And so they talked me through the new website. "Oh, this is great. We have all this great information. We researched our audience. We know that 90% of our visitors are coming from Instagram and Facebook. They're on mobile devices, and they're primarily this demographic." So we designed our new website specifically for mobile. We designed it to look and feel a lot like Instagram. They sold products on their website. So if you go to our homepage, you can scroll and scroll and scroll, and there's just tons of products and lots of images because that must be what people want. They're coming from Instagram and Facebook. It makes a lot of sense logically, except that it really didn't actually turn out to work. They launched this new website, and nothing really happened. Conversion rates didn't tank, which is a good thing, but conversion rates didn't go up. So then they're left there scratching their heads going, "Well, what happened?" We did all this research. We understand our audience, our demographic. We understand what products they want because we've got all this analytics data. But we tried taking all of this and putting it into a website and didn't really seem to work better. So what we did is we started, and one of the things that I always do, regardless of the platform we're testing, whether we're testing the website, whether we're testing a Facebook ad, whatever it is, I start with a question that we want to answer about the audience. These are always open-ended questions so that there's no wrong answer. So here's an example. How many products do people want to see on my homepage? Right? That's a fairly fundamental open-ended question. And again, there's no wrong answer. So it could be they want to see 100 products on my homepage. It could be they want to see no products on my homepage. But we want to find out how many products do they want. So, this particular business, again, they had designed their site to look like Instagram. You scroll and scroll and scroll. There's tons of products. So we created 8 different versions of their homepage. 8 different versions. So we had different numbers of products on there. And on each version, we had removed different sections of products so that the homepage was smaller, more condensed, more focused on specific products. And out of these 8 different homepages, 6 of them increased revenue. And by the end of about a 2-week testing period, we had increased revenue by like $25,000. Just by removing products from their homepage, which helped us to start answering the question of how many products do people want? Well, they want a lot less than we have now. That's one of the first things. And then we start to dig into some of the psychology. Why? Like, why do they want less products? That doesn't seem to make sense because on Instagram, it seems like the more you have, the better. On our site, and so some of our hypotheses were, well, seems like the more products we put, the harder it is to decide what you actually want. So maybe if we put fewer products and we figure out what products those should be, like what products should we display there, we'll help people find the most relevant product and we will distract them with a lot less stuff. And so that's kind of a little bit of what kind of impact we're able to see just by starting to challenge some of our assumptions. And in terms of like the attitude adjustment that I was talking about, a lot of businesses go from, this particular client went from, we know what our audience wants, they want this because they're coming from Instagram. They go from that to, you know what? Let's try a bunch of things out. Let's see what our audience wants. We obviously don't always know what's best. And that's a huge, like, humbling experience for most business owners because most business owners are very good at understanding certain things. And so they want to make decisions quickly. They want to make assumptions. And so it takes a lot of humility to challenge your own assumptions and say, maybe I don't know what's best. Maybe I should try a different approach and ultimately let the data tell me what works best.
It seems like in the website creation world, you almost have to choose one, right? It's almost like you're dealing with what you're talking about, people that understand the conversion aspects of websites. And then there's these other people that, like you said, are branders. And it's interesting because we're literally right in the middle of this right now where we're redoing our website and our COO went and got a brander, right? And so this is the conversation we have is, look, they don't understand conversion. And so how do you find both? How do you find people that do it and make it look good, but then are still understand that the primary mission of a website is conversion? Because Chris, people don't get that. Still today, people do not understand that website's purpose is conversion. They still think it's like to look pretty, it seems like. So how do you find companies that are able to do both?
Yeah, it is a challenge. And I'll be honest, I remember running a test. I ran a test on a landing page that a company was sending a bunch of traffic to. It was a lead generation page. And we were testing what type of imagery resonates best. And they had a picture on there of like their CEO, like their leadership team or whatever. And we tested a completely different image. We tested a version of the page that had no image. And by completely removing all images from the page, conversion rates went up by like 20%. And the company came back and said, well, we're not going to do that. I don't even care that conversion rates went up. We want that picture of our leadership team on there. It's important to our brand. And so it is a challenge. And really it comes down to companies asking themselves, well, what is important to me? Because, and really even a more fundamental question, what is my brand, right? Is my brand what I want? Or is my brand what my customers want? Because they are two completely different things. Now, what you want to find is you want to find the intersection of the two. And that's what companies that I've found that are really successful at kind of walking the line between what I want and what my users want are companies that say, here is the type of things that I would like for my brand to be. I'd like us to really be known for the quality of our products. I'd like us to be known for the beauty of our products, and that we have, that we're really high quality. We have high quality designs. And so here is 5 different approaches that we could take at demonstrating quality, right? This is the cram it down your throat branding approach. And cram it down your throat, I see this all the time with websites. The jam it down your throat branding approach of, here is my brand. Like, you don't buy my products unless you think that, like here's, I'll break it down in a simple example. If you sell food items, and one of your like big branding initiatives is you make vegan foods. So, this is specifically aimed at one particular demographic, and it's like, I want my brand to be known for being environmentally friendly. And so we've got this plastered across the entire, like the header of our website says, just like has all these environmentally friendly logos and brand promises. And then when you're actually buying our products, it's like, 100%, whatever it may be, like, gluten-free, GMO-free, all natural, 100% made in America, whatever, like no animal cruelty. This is all over the place. That's obviously important to you, but maybe that doesn't actually matter when somebody's buying your product. And so one of the things that we would test is, let's take some of this stuff off and find out what happens. Maybe really what your customers just care about is that your product tastes good. Maybe that's the only thing they care about. They don't really care that it's made in America. They don't really care that it is, GMO free or that it's all natural. They care that it tastes good because they've tried enough vegan products that don't taste good. And if that's what your customers care about, it's great that you have all of these other things and you can keep doing all these other things, but you don't need to plaster it all over your website. So that's what we help companies do is I call that like value proposition testing, saying, here's all of our value propositions. I could talk your ear off for an hour or more about my value propositions, but you don't care about all of my value propositions. You probably care about 1 or 2 things. And so the companies that I've seen be most successful are the ones that are willing to say, we do offer great quality products. And I am only going to talk about the ones that my audience really care about. And I'll be willing to put the rest of them down below the fold or put the rest of them on the About Us page. And if they want to go and read about the company, then that's great. Or if they just want to come and buy the product, then I'm going to give them the easiest user experience that is focused on just what they're looking looking for.
Yeah, and it's really hits home. I mean, I have a friend of mine that, this is what they promote, that all their workers are, American based. But the problem is they're paying people literally 4 to 5 times the amount that they should be, because they can easily get people that do the same website stuff they're doing in India for a fraction of the price. And,
Right.
Then the result is they have to lay off a bunch of staff, right? Because their expenses are too high. And only to find out people never cared to begin with. Like, they're military guys. I'm a military guy too. So they kind of felt that was the right thing, but it never ended up getting them anywhere and took them backwards. But here's the question. And there's so many things you could test on a website, right? The color, the font, the style, the font size, how do you even know where to start? I mean, even on a home page, I have to be able to, off the top of my head, mention 50 to 60 things I could think about that you could test. So
Yep.
where do you even start? I mean, there's so many things you could test. How do you even know where to start tackling testing when it comes to a website?
Yeah, and that is a great question, and that's something that's very challenging, especially for people that have never tested before. Because, like you said, I could name off dozens of things, hundreds of things on just on a homepage to get an idea. So what I've developed, because when I first started testing, it was just like, what do I think is the most egregious part of the site? Like, what's the thing that bothers me the most? Which is the worst approach to testing, by the way, because you're still just thinking about yourself.
Right, subjective, yeah.
Right. And so one of the first things that we do, I developed a 3-step process that kind of breaks down your website, and it's based on learning first what is and is not working on your site. So the first phase that I take of testing, I call it an existence phase of testing, where I'm testing what happens if I remove something from the site. Because if I remove something from the site, I can tell very quickly, did people like this or did people not like it? If conversion rates go up when I take something off the site, they obviously didn't like that thing. If I take something off the site and conversion rates go down, well, a lot of businesses go, oh, I don't want that. It's actually a good thing as long as you're not really hurting your overall sales. But if I take something off and conversion rates go down, now I know for 100% for sure that thing should be on the site. If I've got a banner on my homepage that is like featuring my latest and greatest deal, that's like holiday deals, 25% off, and I take that off and conversion rates go down, I know that people need that. They like that. They want to see it. And so then my next test, now that I know that should be on there, my next test is, now let's tweak the banner. I know that it should be there. Let's tweak it. Let's try some different approaches of it, but that way, a lot of times what I'll see businesses do is I'll see them just launch in and start testing a bunch of stuff, and they don't see any impact. And the problem is they're testing something that they're not sure should actually even be there. And so you could test a bunch of different banners all day long, and if nobody's clicking on your banner, if nobody's looking at your banner, if it shouldn't even be there in the first place, then you're wasting a bunch of time testing that. So our first step is testing, should everything be on there? What should be there? What shouldn't be there? The second step is, let's refine what's on there. Let's exploit the stuff that's working well, right? This is where you're going to test the color, the font, the actual wording, the imagery, that kind of stuff. And then the third phase of our testing, this is another thing that a lot of people like immediately go to when they think of testing. I call it explore, or exploring new possibilities on your site. So that's where you might go, hey, our competitors have this cool pop-up thing that they have. Let's try one of those. Hey, I just saw this cool new widget for WordPress that'll let us customize the messaging for our audience or whatever. Let's try this. But again, you don't want to explore and try new things on your site until you already understand what is and is not working on your current site, and until you're getting the maximum bang for your buck off of your current site.
Which makes perfect sense. So these phases, now how many phases are there? There's 3. There's this existence phase or the explore phase.
Yeah. So you have existence, you have exploit or refine, and then you have explore, which is the last phase of trying new stuff. So 3 major phases.
So let me ask you this, and we kind of go back to that existence phase, which makes perfect sense, right? What we're saying is, look, let's remove stuff. Because if we remove it, we have less variables to even test, right? Like if there's 10 things there and we remove 6, and then like conversion rates go up when each one of those remove, then now we only have 4 things to worry about with the exploiting and with the exploration aspects of it. So that makes perfect sense. But again, what do you even know where to start to test? Because with removing things, there could be 10 things on a homepage. And if you're spending 2 weeks testing each one, then you're 3 months into a process just on one page of the website, which I'm sure you could do multiple pages at the same time, just to even figure out what shouldn't be there. So, like, how does that work where you could test as many variables as you can, but not wait months and months and months for that testing to go through?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's where, using like an A/B testing tool is going to be helpful, because you can run multiple different variations of your homepage at the same time, right? I mean, I referred to this other client where we had 8 different home pages. We ran them all at the same time. We were taking traffic and we were splitting it between all of those different pages at the same time. Now, another thing that we also do on top of, because you're asking, well, where might I focus? If I do have a homepage that has 100 things on it, I can't test 100 versions of my homepage, removing each individual thing. So typically what we will do is the things that are going to have the most impact are the things that people see the most. So you want to start at the top of the page and work your way down, because again, everybody's going to see what is on your site when you very first get there without scrolling at all. And so if I have to pick, if push comes to shove and I'm picking, if I have to distill it down to like 2 or 3 things I'm going to test, I'm going to be focusing on things that are at the top of the page, that are in your face, above the fold, for lack of a better term. And I'm going to usually try to also pick the things that I think are the most impactful. So my hero banner on my homepage, it's usually the biggest, the most important thing. I really need to know if that thing should be there, because I'm taking up a lot of really valuable real estate with that. And so I'm going to want to make sure I test that. I'm going to want to make sure if I'm testing a landing page, and this is like a lead gen landing page, similarly, I want to test like how much freaking content do I need? Because most landing pages I look at have a ton of content. And usually when I ask clients, why do you have that much content on there? It's just like, well, they need to know all that information. And 9 times out of 10, you have too much stuff on your page. And so, we do a lot of like content existence tests where you'll take, 8 paragraphs of content and condense it down to 4, down to 2, down to 1, and see what happens when you have less content. Because, I hear this all the time, especially from people that are in very technical fields. I work with a lot of clients in the medical space, and it'll be like, well, our clients are very intelligent. They're doctors. We sell test tubes for doctors, and they're very smart. So they need a lot of content. They need a lot of big, technical medical jargon on there. Again, a lot of the times when we start testing, we start simplifying this page, we find that conversion rates go up, and it's like, oh, well, I do know that my audience is doctors, but they actually don't want all that content. They're busy. They don't have a ton of time to go and read everything on your site. And so the more you can simplify, the better. But again, that is just that's a general principle. That's not like I've also tested on people's websites where the more content you have, the better. I speak at a conference called Social Media Marketing World, and the guy that runs that conference, Mike Stelzner, has a blog, Social Media Examiner, that is for people that do social media. Like, whether you're an influencer, whether you post on social media or whatever, he writes content for them. And on his landing pages, the more content you have, the better it converts. It's mind-blowing. A lot of the tests that we run, I see a complete opposite result of what I would expect. And so again, you wanna test, and again, like I said, if you're trying to figure out where should I start at the top of your page and work your way down.
It's interesting. And I remember, now I remember where I know you from, which is Social Media Marketing World. And I don't remember that. Were you discussing website? Was that your main topic, was website when you were there?
It was, yeah.
Website conversion. I got a lot of tips from your presentation and actually put those into place. So thank you very much.
Awesome. You bet.
So this makes a lot of sense. And, because I think you're right. I know you're right. The stuff that's front and center is the stuff that probably has the biggest impact. We have stuff on our website that with heat mapping, we realize people never even get to. which is the stuff that's further down. So there's no reason to really, test that kind of stuff. But speaking of heat mapping, can you explain a little bit about what heat mapping is and where does this integrate with what you guys are doing? Like, do you do heat mapping and look at that before you even start removing stuff? Because if you look at heat mapping, like, 80% of people are clicking on something, I would think you probably would not even think of removing that. Does that tie in to?
Yeah, so we do heat mapping all the time, and I'll just quickly explain. So heat mapping, there's a free tool that I use called Hotjar that allows you to it's a tool that you install on your site, and basically it tells you two things. It tells you where are people clicking on my page and how far down the page do people scroll. Those are like the two most basic things that it will tell you. Now, what it does not tell you is why. So when you say, so we do run heat maps on sites, and we'll take a look at what are people clicking on, how far down the page are they getting, but it doesn't tell you why they're clicking. So if 80% of the people are clicking on your hero banner, that still doesn't necessarily mean it should be there. They might just be clicking on it because it's there. But if you had something else there that was more relevant, then you would convert better. And so we still will go through and remove things that get a lot of engagement because, again, we want to figure out, is it getting a lot of engagement just because it's there and people click on stuff that they can see? Or is it being clicked on because it is super relevant? So that's where the testing and the heat mapping play in nicely together. The heat mapping will tell you what are people doing. The testing will tell you why are they doing that and should they be doing that. And and I even will challenge your assumption about if people are not scrolling very far down the page, that doesn't necessarily mean that the stuff that's down below the fold shouldn't still be removed. Because a lot of times just how long the page is in general will influence people's behavior. If they start scrolling and they see that this is going to be a freaking long page to scroll down, they might just stop because, well, I don't want to read a ton of content. And so if you can shorten that page up by removing stuff that's down further down the page, it can still influence user behavior. So there's a lot of things that come into play when you're talking about user behavior and user psychology. This is an interesting statistic that Harvard released. So Harvard did a psychological study and found that 95% of a conversion decision, so like a purchase or filling out a form or something, 95% of that decision, it occurs in the subconscious brain, which means that 95% of what's happening is something that somebody couldn't even explain to you, right? If I asked somebody, why did you buy my product? They're going to tell me the 5% that they are aware of, which is like, it was on a good discount today. Or, there's a lot of things that people will tell you if you ask them. But then there's a lot of subconscious things like, well, when I came to the site, it was relevant to what I was looking for. And the design felt trustworthy. And there were certain trust elements that were present. And I saw the reviews and I really, trust these reviews. Or maybe it was like, I didn't buy because I saw these reviews and they felt fake. But it was like, but a lot of those things people wouldn't necessarily explain to you if you asked them. So that's why, again, just looking at a heat map doesn't tell you what you should do on your site. It just tells you how people are currently behaving. And then I want to figure out how can I modify that? What happens if I remove that thing that everyone clicks on? If everybody's using my search bar, what if I take that away? Does that help them focus more on the content? Or are they coming to the site to search, and when I remove that, they're pissed off and they leave? So there are a lot of very interesting things that come from heat maps, and it will actually usually fuel our tests even more to remove stuff because we know that people are using a certain thing.
And which is completely interesting, right? Because nobody would expect that. Like, if you're looking at heat maps, the first thing I look at is, I'm like, oh, that's great. People are like that. Let's go to the stuff they don't like, which is why you're an expert, right? So, and don't mind my unicorn pencil. This is for my daughter, so I use it all the time. So I love it. So what other tools should be there? I mean, what other tools, like, are you still like, you're mind blown that people are not putting on their website and actually tracking as they should be, that if they had those tracking tools, that data, it could make your job, like, in their own job, so much simpler with knowing this kind of behavior?
Yeah, it does blow my mind. So most businesses have Google Analytics, some kind of analytics tool on the site. Google Analytics is the most popular by a long shot. But a lot of businesses have not set up conversion goals inside of Google Analytics. This is very simple to do. If you are an e-commerce store, you need to have Google Analytics revenue tracking set up, because what Google Analytics revenue tracking will help me to understand is, where are all my purchases coming from? Like, who's buying? Where did they come from in the first place? Was it from a paid ad? Was it from SEO? Was it from that blog article that I wrote? And so setting up conversion tracking is a huge oversight if you don't have it. And if you're a lead generation site, you need to make sure that you have different goals set up. So one goal is probably like they filled out the form, like to request a quote. Another goal might be they subscribed to my blog. Another goal might be they made it to a landing page, or they made it to a lead generation page. But I need to understand like what people are actually doing so that I can know, is what I'm doing actually working? I mean, and it seriously blows my mind. Out of, we work with hundreds of clients, and out of those hundreds of clients, more than 50% of them do not have conversion tracking set up when we start working with them. And again, it's just like, seems like a no-brainer to me. Because so here's an example of something that you can glean with conversion tracking. So if I take a look at, a lot of times businesses will come to us and they'll go, our conversion rates have tanked in the last month and we don't know why. And then I'll take a look at their analytics, and if they have conversion tracking set up, I'll look at all of their different sources of traffic. So they get, you're going to get a lot of different types of traffic. You're going to get referral traffic from like articles that you write, or, other types of, social media posts that you do. You're going to have paid traffic where you're running ads and paying for people to get to your site. You're going to have organic traffic that's finding you just by doing a search on Google. You're probably going to have like email traffic that's coming from emails you're sending out. You're going to have direct traffic, people that are just typing your name right into their URL bar there. You're going to have all these different types of traffic sources, and each one of them is going to convert differently. So it's not uncommon for me to see when businesses come and they say, our conversion rates have tanked. And I start looking at their conversion reports, and I go, well, your conversion rates didn't tank. You guys just got a ton of social media traffic this month, and your social media traffic doesn't convert very well. And so it lowered your average conversion rate because, hey, look, I got 100,000 visitors from this social media post I did, and it's not very good quality traffic. But guess what? All of your other traffic sources are still converting pretty well. It just looks a lot worse than it is because you're looking at like an aggregate conversion number. And in reality, like, your social media traffic sucks. And so maybe you shouldn't be focusing so much on social media, or maybe you should, and you just need to understand that when you push a lot of social media traffic, you're going to have worse conversion rates.
What about A/B split testing? What are some things you recommend for people just to be able to start on their own, kind of doing some of their own A/B split testing? Is that possible? What kind of tools should they use to do so?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the easiest and best place to start, Google has a free A/B testing tool called Google Optimize. It'll allow you to run, I think, 3 tests a month, or 3 tests at a time for free. And Google Optimize is great because you can implement it very easily if you already have Google Analytics on your site. It'll just generate an additional tracking code for you to add on your site, and then you can start running a test. In terms of what to start testing, I created an ebook that kind of addresses a lot of these things, because I get this a lot from people that will say, hey, I really want to I want to start testing. I don't know where to start. I don't know what tools to add. And so what I put together in this ebook is some of my top tool recommendations, some of my top test recommendations if you're getting started, some other resources that you should consider for figuring out how to improve over time. And so I'd be happy to send people to that the ebook I put together. If they go to disruptiveadvertising.com/guide, you can download our free A/B testing starter guide that's got a ton of additional tips and tricks in addition to what we talked about today.
How well does that site convert? No, I'm just kidding. Which it sounds like is everything everybody will want to know is in this guide. Some of the tools, some of the things we're talking about. So that's disruptiveadvertising.com/guide, which I will put on the show resources page. I did say that correct, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so that makes a lot of sense. What about, are there any particular analytics that you've dove in and talked a little that we haven't talked about that they really need to be focused on if they want to make sure that they have the best website?
So really, one of the things that we talk to clients about a lot is using your data. So in my opinion, you don't want to add additional tools or additional data or additional insights until you feel like you're really getting a lot out of the data that you have. And so before I recommend like any other types of tools that you should be considering, I first will challenge people to ask, like, what kind of value and insights do I feel like I'm getting out of Google Analytics? Do I feel like I understand how to look at Google Analytics and understand what's happening on my website? Understand where the conversion holes are. Do I look at like conversion funnels on my website and understand where people are falling out? And then what do I do with that data? Like, do I take that data and try to fix those holes, or maybe there's no holes? This is where I see when most clients come to work with us, there's not necessarily any major problems. It's just like, I don't, things seem to be working well. I don't know what I don't know. And so that's where I push people back to some of these like existence type tests to say, do you understand what actually is working on your website, on your PPC advertising, on Facebook, on Google? Do you understand? Do you really know that what you're doing is the very best approach? Or did you just set something up and it worked and you've just been doing it for 2 years? Because a lot of times that's what we will see when we start working with clients is they'll have campaigns that are set up, they'll have audiences in Facebook that are set up, and when we look at the last 6 months or 12 months of data, they haven't tried anything else. It's like, hey, we found something that worked and we've just been focusing on that. And so, that's where I again will just challenge people to constantly be testing, constantly be challenging your current approaches at things. And if you've got heat mapping on your site, are you taking that heat mapping data and doing something with it? Or are you just looking at that data and going, that's interesting, and then you move on? So yeah, I mean, to really not answer your question, I don't typically recommend anything beyond some of the tools that we've discussed until you feel like you have a really solid A/B testing strategy on your site, A/B testing strategy on your ads, and until you feel like you're actually gathering some good conversion data.
And I can't tell you how invaluable this is. On our checkout page, for example, we realized that we give kind of a bulleted list of what they get benefit-wise, and people were clicking on every item on that list. We never even realized that without heat mapping, right? So then we put, when they hover above it, a detailed explanation of each point, which we never even thought people needed. But the cool thing is that allowed us to literally go in and design a feature, a benefit of a benefit with every single one of those things. That then, of course, you can imagine was so useful for everything else we did having that. And that all came from just that one heat mapping tool. So, Chris, what about, do you guys do consultations? Do you guys do evaluations? How does somebody take a first step to dip the toe in the water to get an idea of your knowledge without the full commitment? Do you guys just do things like that?
We do. Yeah, we do. A lot of times we'll do conversion audits of websites, and so we'll go through and we'll take a few of your top your key conversion pages. If it's like an e-commerce site, we'll take a look at each step of your funnel, and we'll kind of deconstruct it and take a look at a lot of the things that we'll take a look at is your value propositions on the site. What are you focusing attention on? Is it very clear what your value propositions are, and how could you potentially be doing a better job of that? We look at call to actions on a page. Like, how do you know what the best call to action is for a page, and are you really maximizing the value that people are getting from that? We look at your content. We're gonna look at and point out any potential distractions, anything that might potentially be causing anxiety. We're going to look at the mobile versus the desktop views of a site. And so, yeah, we do conversion audits all the time. In fact, when I was at Social Media Marketing World, we had a booth that was set up, and we were like slammed the entire conference with people that were just like, give me an audit of my site. Tell me, give me some recommendations. And usually what we try to do is have people come out of those consultations with 2 or 3 tests that they could run on their own. And a lot of times the reason that people come to work with us is not because they couldn't do those tests on their own. A lot of times it's just we're not. It's like, yeah, I could run this A/B test on my site, but I'm not doing it. And so, look, I just want you guys to do it for us because you guys have the bandwidth. You guys are going to focus on it, and you guys are going to make sure it happens every month. And so, yeah, if people wanted to reach out, they can reach out on our website. There's also on that ebook link that I gave you, there's a box that people can check that says, I'm interested in talking with Disruptive Advertising. So if you check that box, then we'll reach out, and we'd be happy to do a conversion audit of anybody's site and just give some pointers.
Awesome. I love what you do because as an entrepreneur, it sucks. I don't want to do it. The reality is most of us that are business owners, man, it's go, 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 go. And so stopping, evaluating, looking at multiple options of things, like there's just no way. Our brains just don't even work. Like that's like torture for us. So I'm so glad that people like you do what you do because it's so important, but yet us sitting where we sit, we're just in this habit of just going and building and doing stuff and leaving it and then moving on. And sometimes like it's broken. We don't even know for months later, let alone it just not working as effectively as it can. So thanks for coming on today and sharing, man, some really, really, really good information we were able to dive into.
You bet. And I mean, if people have questions for me, I'd be happy to field any questions. I'm on LinkedIn or Twitter. My last name, it's Chris Dayley. My last name is spelled Dayley. And so, yeah, I talk to people from all different types of industries, and I talk to business owners all day, every day. And so, and having been a business owner myself, I totally understand what you're saying in terms of the go, 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 go. And so, yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have, or just dig a little bit deeper into people's websites if that would be helpful. So thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, and thanks again for coming. And everybody listening, listen, go to disruptiveadvertising.com/guide. There's two things you're going to be able to do there. If you go to disruptiveadvertising.com/guide, one, you're able to get the guide. And we just kind of scratched the surface here. As you see, we did not have a lot of time to dive into many, many, many other things. I mean, 80% of what I'd like to have asked, I didn't get a chance to. So it sounds like a lot of that, even including actionable tools and steps you could take, are all in this guide. And the other cool thing is that on that exact same page, by clicking one additional box, you can also then have them contact you to learn more about the free audit as well. Even if you just take the audit to learn things you didn't know or learn better ways to test, taking that first step, dipping your toe in the water and figuring out what's wrong with your site or what could be done better could be substantial increases in revenue just by doing that. So disruptiveadvertising.com/guide, grab the guide, click the box to get the free consultation so you could talk to Chris and his team about that audit as well. So remember, this is great information, but it doesn't mean anything unless you actually take action on it. So make sure you visit disruptiveadvertising.com/guide, grab the free guide, click the box so that way you can get contacted, get this free audit to find out what's going on with your site now to really start figuring out what you could do. So many people are worried about getting more traffic when they should be worried about better monetizing the traffic that they already have. And if you think smart, then it gives you such an advantage over your competition who's just trying to get more and more and more, where you could do so much more with so much less. So that's what this is really all about. Grab the guide at disruptiveadvertising.com/guide. And don't forget, everybody, to make sure that you click that box as well. So then that way you can get contacted and get your free site audit. So again, Chris, thanks again, man, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you visit disruptiveadvertising.com/guide. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.